Don't know what happened there. That just sort of all froze, didn't it? But anyway, thank you for joining me. Welcome to a fixture list. So I'm going to have a look at what's going on this week in the Champions League. Might even touch a little bit on the Europa League. Obviously, I'm going to have my match preview coming out for the game that we've got in Moldova later this week. Hope everybody is good. And we'll get stuck into it. Good afternoon, says Zim Zim. Good morning. It's technically 12:33, so it's good afternoon. But let's get into it, shall we then? I believe Jurgen Klopp is under pressure, but we will touch on that game a little bit later on. We're going to have a look at some of the other games that are going on this week. And I think probably one of the bigger games in the Champions League this week. I mean, there's a few, actually. There's some really good games for us to get our teeth stuck into. But I think one of the bigger games for us to get stuck into this week is going to be Manchester City against Dortmund. So City have had a week's rest following the postponement of Premier League fixtures over the weekend as a mark of respect to the late Queen. Last time out, they beat Sevilla quite handily, 4-0. Pep Guardiola could name an unchanged side from that game. Dortmund won at home to Copenhagen on Matchday One of the Champions League group stages, but they did get battered at the weekend 3-0 to managerless RB Leipzig. Terzić is probably looking for a response, but he's going to need to be resilient at the Etihad if they're going to come away with anything. Obviously, it's Erling Haaland playing against his old club, where he got 86 in 89 games, which is honestly, it's absolute piss take, isn't it? Just how many goals that he's gone on and scored. 25 goals in 20 Champions League games, which is, I'm going to be honest, is just outright nuts, isn't it? It's just outright nuts, the return that he's got in the Champions League. It's honest, I just think it's mental, the number of goals that he's got. I think that'll be a straightforward win for City, unfortunately. I think Dortmund are the kind of team that can get them, and I'm looking forward to seeing Bellingham play. Oh, actually, I got an overlay here with all the rest of the fixtures on, so let's get into that, shall we? Here we go. So like I was saying, Bellingham and Haaland, I do think those are the two players that you got to watch in this game, and this is probably the sort of most important game, I imagine, having a look at this weekend's fixtures. Got a super chat there from Mike, and he says, my thoughts on United having another fixture cancelled while other clubs get to play theirs seems unfair. 4 weeks off and then City. I agree. It should be one off, all off, or none of them off and all of them play. I don't understand how you're looking at different fixtures and seeing them differently. They're suggesting it's because of the amount of police that are required to police Manchester United versus Leeds. Well, in that case, why don't we make it a home event only? Surely that would reduce the number of police required for Manchester United and Leeds. The only team coming to cause trouble here is Leeds. United aren't looking to cause trouble against Leeds. They're so irrelevant to United at the moment, but we are the biggest thing when it comes to Leeds, so I think that's why ours has gone. Some of the fixtures that are close to London make more sense to call off, but they've not been called off. I find it very frustrating, very prejudicial, I think, from the way the Premier League treats some of these fixtures and this, that and the other. If it's all right, if you've got enough people to police the Etihad tonight, you've got enough people to police Old Trafford on Sunday. It shouldn't make any difference whatsoever. Also, are they suggesting that they're not going to be looking into any crimes this weekend because everything's going to be focused on the funeral on Monday? It's absolutely ludicrous. Anyway, the other games that are worth looking at for us this week, and if you've got any questions, throw your questions in and give the video a like as well. The other questions this week that are, or the other fixtures, that are worth looking into, Real Madrid against Leipzig. Real Madrid, the only side in Europe's top 5 leagues that have made a 100% start to the season. They are absolutely flying at the moment. Leipzig did get off to the perfect start under Marco Rose as they eased to a 3-0 win over Dortmund on Saturday. They do face a tough task, though, because they look to bounce back from last week's 4-1 mauling at the hands of Shakhtar. And even with the potential absence of Benzema, who came off injured last week, Real Madrid should edge this one, I would imagine. So it's one of those. Chelsea against Salzburg, first game for Potter in charge of Chelsea. I tweeted yesterday that I kind of expect the wheels to come off Chelsea a little bit at the moment. Now, they're still good enough like Manchester United, were still good enough to be successful for a number of years following an ownership change. But I think when you've got the owner trying to be as hands-on the way he is, I think it's only going to go one way for him, and I think it's going to end very badly for them. I think him getting rid of Cech, installing himself as sporting director, whether or not he is actively trying to recruit another one, why get rid of the one you had and install yourself? That just strikes me as all sorts of wrong. So I think that the writing is on the wall for Chelsea, and they're talking all the right noises about making it a long-term plan with Graham Potter, but I'm suspicious. Might be a new regime at the club, but look, you can only look at what that club has done, and that club does not look like it's going to be a long-term project for anybody. So Chelsea against Salzburg, I think Chelsea should have enough in them to be able to do this one. They did fall to a 1-0 defeat to Zagreb last week, which was the final act of Thomas Tuchel's reign at Chelsea. Potter obviously taken over as his replacement. First game in charge. Their game this weekend was cancelled because of the passing of the Queen. Salzburg, despite a massive injury list that they've got, are unbeaten in 7 and they've won 6. The only blip on that was a 1-1 draw with AC Milan last week. So they could be good, but I think Chelsea should have enough in the tank. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see them get overturned in this way as well. Not saying the next 6 months will be intriguing at Chelsea. Yeah, I think they've still got enough talent in the squad to be able to go and do whatever. But I would think it's going to be really interesting. Not as I find it too weird, Bahuli couldn't build anything around Tuchel. Tuchel's one of he's definitely the most available good coach that's out there at the moment, without a shadow of a doubt. And him becoming available probably means that some managers will lose their job as clubs try and get him because he's available. Brian says, can see them being okay for the first few games under Potter because he won't change too much right away. It's when he tries to handle the Eagles is when you'll see everything fall apart. And Mario De Silva there with a super chat says, Steve, while Marshall is out injured, what do I think about Sancho down the middle? Rashford on the left, Anthony on the right. Can hold the ball up better than Rash. I think he can link the play better than Marcus can, but I don't know about holding the ball up. I know he likes to play in between the lines, but I think you need a striker that's going to do a bit of both. That's coming and linking the lines, but also stretching the defence when needs to as well. I wouldn't want to see Sancho down the middle, in all honesty, because he offers no threat in behind, barely, no threat. Sergio says Chelsea's Champions League run will give an idea about Potter. Yes, and Caleb says we will see a similar response at Chelsea to how our players were with Rangnick. I don't know. I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? But I don't know. I don't know is the answer to that one. Milan against Zagreb. Now, this one's an interesting one, I think. Obviously, Zagreb have won 5 of their last 6 matches in the Champions League. AC Milan have failed to win 9 of their 10 last matches in the Champions League. On form alone, this looks like an absolute smashing for Dynamo Zagreb. And AC Milan were held to a 1-1 draw by Salzburg in Austria last week, but they responded well as they beat Sampdoria at the weekend. They are unbeaten this season, but they've only won 4 of 7 matches. Dynamo Zagreb have sprung a huge upset by beating Chelsea and obviously seeing Thomas Tuchel off. And they've won their last 6 on the bounce, and they've just lost once this season. They should not be underestimated, and they could definitely cause AC Milan problems. And it's a team that's struggled. For me, I think what the intriguing thing about this is, as it comes towards an international break, when you look at what might happen with England next week, and we'll probably do a video about this, selecting our England squad from what's available, because obviously after we've played on Thursday, that's the only football for us to talk about, really. There's going to be a big question mark about what happens with Shaw, Maguire, Rashford, Sancho, whether or not they're all going to make Gareth Southgate's final preparation squad, because this is it. This is the only time for Gareth Southgate to make any sort of selection ahead of the World Cup. He's going to have to see what he needs to see out of players now, watch their form and injuries over the next 6 or 7 weeks, and then he's got to just pick the ones that he needs to take to Qatar. Personally, I've been toying around with what I think my 11 could be. I'd like to see England play 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 and actually go for it, but I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to play 4-3-3. Now, I can't find a way to put Maguire in there with a good conscience, but there's a player that I think should be looked at, and that's Tomori, who's been bossing it at Milan. And I think Tomori needs a look in. And I actually think that he will be someone that should go. If Southgate's truly picking on form, then I think he has to look at the likes of Tomori. He just simply has to. And I think he has to look at the likes of Abraham. I think the only people that should consider themselves a shoe-in is probably Bellingham. And I think it'll be Harry Kane will be a shoe-in as well. But if you're going to play Harry Kane, I'd love to see him played with Tony. But we'll get into all of that sort of stuff when we need it. Notch says, already reported Southgate isn't picking Shaw this month. Well, he's got nothing to pick him on, has he? JS says Tuchel might be Tuchel to Real next season after Ancelotti retires. That's an interesting one. Tom says, how long will whatever injury Varane picks up at the World Cup keep him out for? Red Lad says Maguire probably the only one going to be in the squad. Hilarious, if that's the case. Hilarious. But yeah, so we will be having a look at that. But I think if you want to watch that AC Milan game against Zagreb, I think that's going to be one of the more interesting games that you see. And I think if you're an England fan, I think having a look at Tomori and thinking, what could he do in defence? Because there's so few options. Anyway, one big game. I think this is tonight, actually. That's worth looking at. And it is. You're either going to, I think, watch Ajax, Liverpool, or Bayern, Barcelona. Bayern are undefeated in the last 30 of their 32 matches in the Champions League. They've scored at least 3 goals in their last 4 matches against Barcelona in all competitions. They've won 7 of their last 8 matches against Barcelona in all competitions, and they've won only 2 of their last 5 competitive matches following a 2-2 draw with Stuttgart at the weekend. They have won their last 4 against Barcelona, however. Lewandowski has got 9 goals and 2 assists in his first 6 games for Barcelona. How do you see this game going? I think this is a game that everyone's going to have all eyes on. So you've got 2 big returns, haven't you, this week? You've got Haaland going back to Dortmund. You've got Lewandowski going back to Bayern. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how both of those strikers do. They've both hit the ground running at the new club. Completely obliterating that meme of Bundesliga being a farmers league, because they've just both gone to different leagues and, if anything, increased the amount of goals that they're scoring. How do you see this game going? Because I'm totally on the fence with this one. Totally on the fence. I think it's going to be an entertaining game of football, and that's about where I finish with it, to be honest. And then finally, we've got Liverpool versus Ajax. And like I said at the top of the show, I think Jurgen Klopp is under a lot of pressure at the moment. Ajax have scored at least 2 goals in 8 of their last 9 matches, and that's Champions League, not just in Holland. Liverpool have enjoyed a nightmare start to their Champions League campaign. Not just beaten, but absolutely steamrollered by Napoli, who are playing Rangers. They've been really poor so far this season. They've won twice only in all competitions. Ajax have been exceptional. They lost the Dutch Super Cup to PSV, but they have won 7 on the trot. They're top of Eredivisie. They're level on points with Napoli at the top of Group A. If they go to Anfield tonight and pull out a victory, Jurgen Klopp is in serious pressure, or he should be. And if he's not, it's only because the Scouse media is protecting him. Otherwise, if this was Manchester United, there would be serious people asking for him to go. Abhinav Verma says Trent is going to be exposed again today. I think what's impressive with Ajax, they lost Antony, they lost Martinez, they lost Ten Hag, they've lost Gravenberch, they've lost more players than that, and they've just gone, yeah, cool, watch this, and just kept it going. Brian Case says can see both of them scoring against their former clubs. That'll be Lewandowski and Haaland. An easy win for Ajax. Moz says there's a world where Klopp could be sacked. Don't take it for granted. I don't think he's going to get sacked. I don't see Liverpool board doing that to him. I think he's more likely to walk than to be sacked, to be honest with you. Joe says, Liverpool now with all the injuries, it's difficult for them. I think Ajax will win. Chet says, do I think Trent will get exposed again tonight? Absolutely. Connor says, what do I think of Leao from AC Milan? Yeah, very good. Simon says, pants off if Ajax wins, cigars all around. No, I'm not going to crow too much because I think United might have a harder game than people are expecting in Moldova as well. And definitely tune in for the preview tomorrow to learn about why. Ian Galuli says, that's very unfair. What's very unfair? Notch says, Souness made excuses for him this morning saying, this player's old, that player's old. Huh. It's almost like players get old, isn't it? Fuck you on about, Graham. More questions about Memphis, which I thought I'd answered enough. Chet says, Souness is a hack. Diogo says, I would put pretty much the whole Ajax squad on my fantasy team. They are playing amazingly. If we can continue to scout for Ajax, we'll be in safe hands. I think there's a good chance that we're probably going to do something along those lines, in all honesty with you. So there you go. That's this week's midweek fixtures. Throw any questions in quick. I'll stick around and answer some questions. Would I take Memphis back? No. Sulfur says, need to employ Klopp as chief cheerleader when he gets sacked. Omar says, Ajax has no striker number 9, but they still win all of their games. Ryan says, it is, however, pants off if Rangers beat the Scousers next week. Now, if Liverpool fail to win this week and then get beat by Rangers, Diogo says, Bergwijn will pretty much destroy Trent. Rodney says, Ajax will play a 2-3-5 and build up, which Ten Hag is likely to do at Old Trafford. Chet says, great video. Thank you, my mate. Moz says, what if Haaland gets injured? Would City struggle to win? No, I don't think they would struggle to win, in all honesty. They spent all last season without a striker. I think they'll be fine. Daniel says, do I think Ten Hag will have time to implement some good tactics and frameworks in training during the 4 weeks off or so? It's not going to be 4 weeks off, is it? Obviously, because you're going to have a significant number of your players go away on international duty, so that doesn't necessarily help. I think this week will probably prove quite fruitful for him, but we will see. Abhinav says, do I actually think Southgate will pick players on merit? No. Tom says, I'm doing a load job on Ajax to knock 3 in at 7. Joe says, do you think we will buy players in January because of the World Cup and postpone games? Possibly. I hope we do. Emma says, Ten Hag definitely knows which players will do good in the Prem, so I wouldn't be worried if we get some players from the weaker leagues. And Beefy says, when will the missed fixtures be rescheduled? I haven't heard on that front just yet. I haven't heard. Nitin says, how many consistent wins before we say Ten Hag's system has started working? I don't know. Because we had what we had with Ollie at the start, didn't we? And I think a lot of that was as much personnel as it was system, or if more so personnel than it was system. So I really couldn't answer that. I think you probably got to see it over the course of a whole season, really, is what I think. Do I think Trent is lazy? Yes, I think Trent has read the hype and got the hype about himself and now thinks he doesn't have to fucking do anything. Ewan says, is Will Fish any good? Hibs fan? I think he could be. Notch says, Paddock FC game this weekend. Crew reserves have just been in touch asking us if they want a game. I've said yes, but let me make sure I've got a squad because we weren't scheduled for a game. So I am hoping that we do have a game, which should be away to crew reserves. And then we should have a game on the 24th, as far as I'm aware. Michael says, Liverpool losing tonight would help me get through these tough times. Imagine the amount they got wanked off for the last 7 or 8 years has resulted in the exact same amount of dominance that we saw from Leicester and Blackburn. I might pass away from laughing. Brian says, you can definitely see a difference in the players since Ten Hag come in. They are more of a team now instead of a group of individuals. I think once the quality comes out of the first 11, I think we fall off in a big way, and that's an issue. Daniel says, do I think the postponements will have a drastic impact coming close to the end of the season? Jesus Christ, when did I learn to read? It depends on how far we go in the cup competitions. And if you go the distance in the Europa League, that's, I think, about 214 games you have to play. So, I don't know. Can viewers from from Bangladesh watch Paddock FC games? If yes, how? You can watch the highlights of them on the Paddock FC channel. If you would like to become a member, just search Stretford Paddock Fan Ownership. For those that keep asking about the app, there's literally been text messages popping in here now from Callan, and he says we are now at the stage with a test build for the Android version. There's a little bit of back-end stuff, but I can send it over in the next couple of days. So we are hopefully now in the final testing of the app. So if you become a member of Paddock FC, there's going to be a monthly pay option once the apps are launched, but you can pay up front now, and we'll be doing, there's loads of things that I want to be put into vote, and there's going to be content going in there, including the full 90 minutes of all of our games and the full unedited interviews as well. So yes, if you want to watch the full 90s, you can do that. I'm hoping to resolve the issue at our home ground. Otherwise, I think this weekend would have been perfect for having a home game, wouldn't it? With no United playing, but it is what it is. IR says, anyone know why the stuff about Bellingham is blowing up now? Something I missed. Possibly because they're playing this week. Possibly because of England this week. Possibly people sowing the seeds of SEO before he becomes something big over the next few months, maybe. I'm not sure. Red Lad says, watch a match or the goal show tonight. I'm probably going to watch Liverpool Ajax. But I might have Bayern and Barcelona on a laptop or something as well. Righty. Cheers for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to like the video. Also subscribe if you're new around these parts. And if you're interested in what we do with the football club, 100% fan owned, just Google Stretford Paddock Fan Ownership, and I trust you brainy enough to do the rest of it. Otherwise, if you're not, I don't want you voting anyway. But cheers for tuning in. See you in the next one.